Hey, Stephen Peterson here, and we are talking about changing one pattern in your life, and it'll change your life for the better. You can't believe it. You don't have to buy anything from me. One of these days, hopefully, I'll have a book to sell you, but I don't have anything to sell you. I'm just telling you, this has changed my life. I'm a power person. I'm a right now person. Microwaves are too slow for me. Drive ups are too slow. I want breakthrough now. I want answers now. And I've had things like that, just boom, just immediate, just boom, you go, yes. But most of the time, I've been very, very discouraged to find out I live in the process. I live in the pattern. I live in the habits. We do everything by habits, routines, process, and patterns. Everything. Thank God for breakthroughs. Thank God for breakthroughs. And I'm looking for them. I want them for you and I want them for me. But so many breakthroughs can be dependent upon knowing the right person or being in the right place at the right time. And there's a sense of that in our lives, and I believe it will work out. But it seems to work out better for some people than it does for others. But patterns work for everyone. The rich and the poor, the famous and the not so famous, or even the infamous, the really intelligent and not so smart. A good pattern will bring you breakthrough. A good pattern will get you someplace you could never get there on your own simply by hard work, and that's what this whole program is about. Patterns for Progress. And I'd love to hear from you. My email address is patternsforprogress@gmail.com. It comes up on the screen here and there. I don't have a monitor, so I can't tell you when it comes up. But it's at the bottom of the screen. It's the end of the program. Patternsforprogress@gmail.com. Tell me how you're doing. Questions, a lot of times I'll have something. If you want a copy of it, I'll send you the link or a copy. But I want to see you change one pattern, get rid of one pattern that doesn't work, and bring in a new pattern and watch what happens. And again, usually it isn't instantaneous. But when you change one pattern, guess what? Two or three, what you call them, side patterns also begin to change, and you get sharper. I don't like showing up early for airplanes. And before we had children, my wife and I cut it so close one time. We were literally running through the airport. They were holding the plane for us. We didn't even know if our luggage was going to get there. We got on the plane. They shut the door. They backed the plane up before we could put our seatbelts on. And I vowed that day, I'm never cutting it that close again. And now, especially because of my wife, sometimes we'll show up 2.5 hours early. We flew on Southwest once, and I was parking the car, and she was checking in, and she called me. They're boarding, and I said, they can't be. It's 3 hours away. They were boarding the flight before us. It was a different city. And I've sat, and sometimes I think, man, I've wasted so much time in airports, but you know what? My blood pressure doesn't go through the roof trying to find a parking space or get there at the last second. There's so many benefits to that. You don't have to do that. I did that because I got tired of cutting everything close. I got tired of it. And you know what? It doesn't work on TV. It doesn't work in so many things. People want something way ahead of time. Long before you see this program is at the TV station. And so it's been a good pattern for me. But let me tell you a story that literally changed my life and changed me. I'm still a power person. I still want everything right now. I still want breakthrough. I don't want to wait a whole hour. I want to get the whole kit and caboodle all in one thing. I'm holding my acorn, not for luck, but in case I tell you something about it in a few minutes. But this story changed my life. I'd been reading a book, not this book, but it was a book like this, on how you recognize your weakness and you begin to work on them and hone them and turn your weakness to strength, I believe the book was called. And man, I'd worked on it for months. Maybe I'd worked on it for a year. And at the time, I was a perfectionist. Now I'm a perfectionist in recovery. I'm a recovering perfectionist. Excellence is attainable. Perfection is not. I'm not even going to try. So I'm reading this book, and because I'm a perfectionist, I can see nothing but weakness. I don't even see strengths in my life. Oh man, I should be better here, and I should be better. I had this long list. It was miserable. It was a miserable time of my life. I was miserable. It just wasn't a good time. But I'd been working on it for months. And I thought it was something, turning your weakness into strength. I was reading the book. By the way, be very, very careful who you listen to and what you listen to, because what you listen to grows. Whoever you listen to, whatever you listen to, it grows. And I was reading this book. Now, I don't want to put this person down. I don't remember their name. It was one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. Literally one of the dumbest things, turning my weakness to strength. And I'm frustrated with myself. And there's this fellow named Ed Cole. He's not with us anymore. But at the time, he had gray hair, and I had dark brown hair. He had a very gentle way, and he had a quick laugh, he was just very congenial. But his words could cut deep. And he wasn't mean, he wasn't vindictive, he wasn't petty, he wasn't trying to put anybody down, but he would just say something very bluntly, and I'm going, man, I'm just loving listening to this guy. And I'm thinking of all my struggles, working on weakness, and I'm listening to this guy named Ed Cole. And Ed turns to me and says, only a fool works on his weakness. Man. Now, I'd worked on my weaknesses for months, maybe even into more than a year. I had failed at it miserably. You can't make your weaknesses into a strength. You can run a mule from sunup to sundown, but they're not going to win the Kentucky Derby. A weakness is a weakness. And so I'm reading this book, Turning My Weakness to Strength. I'm failing miserably at it. I'm a perfectionist. I just feel like I'm failing every part of my life. And Ed Cole says, only a fool works on his weakness. Man, I was offended. I was mad. He was right. I'd been a fool to work on my weakness. And then he just had this grandfatherly way. Man, he must have been one bad motor scooter of a grandfather, because he could be so kind but so direct and so blunt. And he said, listen, God gives us strengths. He believes in God, believed in God. I believe in God. Whatever, I'm just telling you, being straight with you. And he said, God gives us our strengths, but he also allows our weakness. And he said, he believes that nobody has everything. I tell you that almost every week. Nobody has everything. The most gifted person in the world doesn't have everything. Solomon was said to be the richest person in the world and the wisest person. But in terms of common sense, he was an idiot. He turned his life into a living hell. Read the book of Ecclesiastes out of the Bible. You want to get depressed. He's rich and he's wealthy and everything is within his reach and nobody says no to him and he's miserable. That's another story. But Ed said, God gives us our strengths. We have to discover them, develop them, nurture them, celebrate them, and that's where your breakthrough in life will come. That's where your success in life will come. As you discover your strengths, in the process, you'll also discover your weaknesses. And let me tell you the easiest way to tell if it's a strength or a weakness. Work on it for a couple of weeks. Doesn't get any better. It's a weakness. And he said, so wherever you're strong, recognize your strengths, work on them. And when he said you're strong, I was weak in many areas. I had abandoned my strengths. I had to go back and reclaim them and start working on them. Feeling like somebody repeating the, first or second grade going, man, what's wrong with me? But he said, then you recognize your weakness. So you find out if you're just late to everything, hang around a friend who wants to come early to everything. Surround yourself with people, 2, 3, 4 people who have strengths where you have weakness. Recognize it, celebrate it, admit it. Man, you're strong here, I'm strong there. Quit. He painted a picture that if you develop your strengths, it's like this big, beautiful garden, and your weaknesses are weeds. But the garden grows so beautifully, the weeds don't have any place to move. They don't have any light, they don't have any water, they just don't have any place to be seen. Oh man, changed my life. Broke my heart. But it changed my life. Only a fool works on your weakness. So I had to go rediscover my strengths, begin, and I listen. I didn't have the wherewithal to tell people, hey, this is really a strength. I just started working on it. And here's the thing to do. Use whatever you have. Everybody's got some kind of strength. Everybody does. Years ago, 60 Minutes did a program on savants. And they had a man who couldn't add 2 plus 2, but he could tell you what day when the third Wednesday was in 1075. He could just say, oh, third Wednesday in September, that's the 20th. I mean, this guy, I've never seen anything like it. Another man who had maybe 100-word vocabulary, but he could sculpt like Michelangelo. It was just amazing, the sculptures he did. And when they'd have him talk, I did good. That's all he could say. But the dude was confident. It's proof that everybody has something. And nobody has everything. Nobody. Quit trying to, I'm going to be good at everything. No, you're not. You might be better than me at it, but you won't be good. Find your strengths. Here's a pattern. Write your strengths down. If you don't know your strengths and you don't know your weakness, you probably are in trouble. I don't mean you're in trouble with the law, but you're struggling in life. Find out what your strengths are and say, here's what I'm going to work on. Here's what I'm going to celebrate. Here's what I'm going to nurture. Here's what I'm going to protect. Here's what I'm going to value in me. And then find out what your weaknesses are. Your friends and your enemies will be glad to tell you all your weakness. I wouldn't brag about it, but I'd write it down and say, okay, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this. And so this is what I'm looking for in my life. But this is what I'm going to develop. Here's my acorn. It's going to come into play right now. Strengths and weaknesses at the start all look like this little acorn. But if you work on a weakness for 2 weeks and it doesn't get any better, it's a weakness. If you work on a strength for even just 2 weeks, all of a sudden it starts to grow. You go, hey, I struggled at this, but now I'm getting good at it. It's the difference between a strength and a weakness. A weakness is an acorn that always remains an acorn. A strength is an acorn that when you work on it, when you develop it, when you nurture it, it turns into an oak tree. It turns into something to be proud of. It turns into something you can build your life on. That's what I'm talking about. I had a pattern of working on my weakness until I ran into Mr. Ed Cole. I'm not sure I would have listened to anybody else tell me. Only a fool, because I'd listened to that guy in the book. Turning your weakness into strengths. I couldn't do it. Guess what? It can't be done. And if you can do it, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear where you recognize your strengths, develop them, nurture them, and that's all you're going to stay in. Now, your job may require you to do lots of things in your weakness. Try to find a job where more things in your strength are there and less parts of your weakness. It'll make your boss happy. It'll make you happy. But I'm talking about personal life. Listen, different places I work, I got to work with my weakness because that's part of the job description. I try to do it quickly, and I try to get somebody else to help me. But that's what this whole program is. Finding the acorns in your life you can turn into mighty oak trees. A strength into something that can take you around the world. This program is called Patterns for Progress. That one pattern changed my life. You take that one pattern, quit working on your weakness, start working on your strengths. You might even rename your kids after me. I don't think you will, but you'll thank me for it. And I'd love to hear from you. patternsforprogress@gmail.com. I'm Stephen Peterson. The email address, patternsforprogress@gmail.com. I really appreciate you watching, and I'm trusting that this thing is helping you, and you're going to respond to me and give me something that helps me. Hope to hear from you soon.